Welcome back. Here we are going to take a look at 3D shapes. We have cube, we have sphere, we have cone, and we have torus. It is very similar when you take a look at it. It is very similar to what we had in 2D shapes. These all are brush shapes. You can always just click on the side of it and to increase the size, decrease the size as you want. As you can see, there's now UI help elements popping up for 3D shapes. You need to go to details panel for this one. And here you can always increase the bevel, etc., decrease it, up to you. Create the shape you want. All of them have pretty similar, but you will see sphere has additional options. And you can always take a look at it and change the way it works. I'm going to revert the parameters. And you can always make it, modify it to make it exactly the shape you want. Again, you can click on the lines here and modify it, squish it, enlarge it, etc. as well. For cone, same as before, you can increase the top ratio. Essentially, if you increase it to the max, it becomes a cylinder. You can change the angle degree like you did with the sphere, start degree as well, and sides to increase the quality. Let's revert it. And torus, which is very similar to ring. You can increase the slice sides to essentially make it higher quality. You can increase the inner size, decrease the inner size, angle degree, start degree, the same as ring. There is not much here about them specifically, but you need to keep in mind for certain shapes there's additional material parameter options. So here we have the cube, and in the cube we have different material slots for each face it has. So if I were to change this face and let's say make them different color, let's make this one yellow, this one green, and let's say keeps the front one white. Now we have a multiple colored cube, which you wouldn't be able to do easily with regular basic shape. So if you have the regular basic shape in Unreal cube, which is a static mesh, not only you wouldn't have these parameters because this is not a brush shape to change the shape of the object, also you would have only one material slot. So when you're working with motion design, it is recommended to not use basic cubes and instead use your brush shapes. It has additional benefit of having option like additional modifiers in your operator stack. Static meshes has limited modifiers. Brush shapes has a lot more. We are going to cover them later. Just keep in mind, they are more useful for motion design than regular shapes. Also, if you're a game developer and you are trying to use this for games, make sure to double test like if it works or not for you. Certain logics may not work properly if you're trying to force to like a shape meant for motion design at like for game elements interactions. To make sure you double test it and don't expect it to work like a regular cube. It has different parameters, it has different presets. You would have to modify a lot of stuff. You can change the size of it to use an asset, material designer material, or vice versa. You can put like different material for each face. In the case of us like this one, as you can see, like there's currently just one material. But if I were to change it like this and like not this one, my apologies. This. Now I have more material slots. The reason why this happens is, like, Unreal recognizes there's additional face that it can now use materials on, which is very useful that it does it automatically. If I were to restore my shape, that material slot would disappear, as you can see. Same goes for these two shapes. If you have a side of a mesh, which is a different face, for example, in this case, we have the bottom and the top. We have two material slots. If I were to increase the ratio of the top, so there's additional face here, now we have third one. So if I just put it like this yellow, you will see it is now on the top. By the way, I did make a mistake of saying they don't have tooltips. The reason why they didn't have it because I by mistake clicked on Shift O and removed the helpful tooltips. If you like, you can see like, here we have overlays, editors, etc., guides, save frames for camera, etc., texture overlay. If you're these are just view modes, you can always use your details panel, but this makes easier to see what you need to edit. My apologies for the mistake. Anyway, that's just pretty much for the 3D shapes. And do keep in mind, you can use static shapes you imported to use in motion design. Just make sure you understand that they are going to have limited functionality versus the 3D and 2D shapes that Unreal provides. Just going to give you a brief example. If you add a basic shape, which is not a shape for motion design, this one is just a mesh, static mesh cube, different from this one, which is a brush cube created by the motion design mode. If you go to operator stack and go to modifiers, you will see you don't really have much modifiers, and if you go here, you have a lot more. And one thing I have not touched upon is in the details panel, you will see that there is two icons near every value. The first one is to create a remote control presets. So if you want to give this, something about this shape needs to be remote controlled by someone else during the process of like this show or program or whatever, you can click on this. This will add a value here, which can later on modify to create a web UI that they can use interface. This one is for sequencer. If you click on it and go to your sequencer, you will see this is added to your sequencer and there is a key for it. Going to remove this one. Now let's take a look at this cube. You have them too, as both of them as well, but because there's less parameters here which are actually useful for motion design, like the only ones you could really use are probably the material one, the static mesh one you should probably never animate, unless you're just changing the shape depending on the scene, and location, rotation, and scale. You're not going to be able to do much with it, unlike this shape, which has so many parameters, you can literally configure everything and change every color every time, like during the process of the show. And that's pretty much it. If you can, use 3D shapes provided by motion design for motion design needs. If you can't, just make sure to keep in mind what you can and cannot modify. We are going to touch upon modifiers and animators later in the course. Thank you for watching.